again here. I am the Leaky Gut Coach and the creator and founder of the JIA Blueprint. And today we're going to talk about why your JIA child, why your child with juvenile arthritis seems to be a little bit picky. Now, some parents, they say, my child eats just fine, and that's wonderful. But for the most part, our kids with juvenile arthritis and other autoimmune and neurological issues seem to have this common thread of being somewhat of a picky eater. Why is that? Well, if we go to the mainstream and look at why they might think, they're probably going to scratch their head and say, I don't know, right? Juvenile arthritis is idiopathic. There's no connection to their juvenile arthritis and their partiality, let's say, of certain high carbohydrate, high sugar, high digestible foods. But I'm here to tell you something very different about juvenile arthritis, which is not only going to explain why your child is so picky, but it's also what I also plan to do today is share with you how to reverse this. So that way, not only will your child eat a variety of foods, but you'll also be repairing the root cause of what got them with these symptoms in the first place. So let's get started. But before we do, if you could like, share, subscribe this video and, subscribe to my channel, watch some of my other videos, that would be wonderful. It is great for the YouTube algorithm. They really like to see who it is that's watching certain kinds of videos. So that way they know where to put them. And that puts videos like this in front of other moms who have children with juvenile arthritis and are looking for answers on how to reverse it, not just manage it. So if you can go ahead and do that, that would be amazing. So, okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about why your juvenile arthritis child is picky. And by doing that, I'm going to explain what is going on in the body and how that connection of what is going on in the body creates what we consider a picky child. Okay, so when a child has juvenile arthritis, this is not an isolated incident. This is not a matter of a overactive immune system attacking healthy tissue. What did I say? It's not an overactive immune system attacking healthy tissue. And that's the definition that we get from the mainstream approach. But we're also getting scratched foreheads and idiopathic diagnosis saying that they really don't know a whole lot about this. So really what's happening in the body is we have a very healthy immune system. There really is no reason or why an immune system would ever become overactive or confused. Well, we have our immune systems. Immune systems are intact. They're healthy. They are strong. They have one job, and it is to detect pathogens in the body. And so really the converse is true. We have a healthy child with a healthy immune system which has detected pathogens in the body. And in your child's case, these pathogens have been detected in their joints. We're going back. I'm taking you a few steps down to understand the picky eating. So what we have are pathogens in the body. How did the pathogens get there? So what we have going on is in epidemic proportions, we have permeable gut issues. What that is we have gut linings that are permeable, meaning microscopic holes, you could say, but they're microscopic areas where different pathogens, bacteria, fungi, fecal matter, food particles are able to seep out of the gut into the bloodstream and then further along into the joints and tissue, in behind the eye. It just depends on the autoimmune disease that you're presenting with. With our kids, it's juvenile arthritis. That means that the toxins have gotten into the joints. The immune system has detected the toxins in the joints and is fighting them there. That's where the war is taking place. So we have a gut that's permeable. That means it started to leak. You've probably heard the term leaky gut. Most of us have by now. And it's finally gaining recognition by mainstream medicine. Thank goodness, because it really makes my job a lot easier. So what caused the permeable gut? Again, we're taking the steps back to figure out what's the connection? Why is my JIA child picky? So how did the gut get permeable in the first place? Well, the way the gut gets permeable is when the ecosystem in the gut gets taken off balance. Now, one thing we can all just visualize and accept with our eyes is that the earth is a mess and we are made of this earth. So we're really just a product of our environment. It's never been more polluted. It's never been more off balance. And really that's the state of most of our bodies internally right now, unfortunately. I would venture to say that unless we are proactively doing something about this problem, just existing in this world on this planet, we are likely going to end up with an imbalanced ecosystem in the body because the world that we live in and on is imbalanced as well. But what happens when there's the imbalance? We have the good bacteria that's supposed to be lining our gut wall, inhabiting the small intestine, and some that break down food and digest, and some that absorb nutrients and feed our body. And that's really what we want dominant in all of our bodies. And we want a great biodiversity of those because that bacteria in the body, it sends signals to the brain saying, I want, and it's usually something nourishing and healthy. It's usually, something that God intended us to eat. But the bad bacteria, the pathogenic bacteria, when it starts to take over, that creates the imbalance. So we have issues such as yeast overgrowth, parasitic infections, mold issues, heavy metal problems, lots of issues that unfortunately many of our children were born with. We could have been born with it because maybe somehow there's a genetic component, and you can watch another one of my videos on that where I discuss the genetic component of juvenile arthritis and how that is not a life sentence for us. But it could also be when going through the birth canal, what does the mom have to give to the baby? Because they can only get what we have, nothing more. And then also if our child was a C-section, they didn't get anything. So when there's no good bacteria or not a proper balance of good bacteria, when they start, eating the different foods in this world, they start to develop, usually it's yeast. But make no mistake, it could very well at a very young age. It could be a mold issue. Many young children that I work with, they have heavy metal issues going on, parasitic infections going on. But when these bacteria, when they take over in the body and they become dominant, they have very short lifespans. And about 24 to 72 hours is all they have to live. And what do they need to live and to procreate and to continue to spread? They need sugar. That's what they need to live. So I want you to visualize this, a gut lining or a gut, an ecosystem, a world in our child's gut, because we know now that about 90% or more of our immune system and all the bacteria that we possess is there in our gut. So imagine this whole world, and it's taken over by gangs, right? It's taken over by gangs, the yeast gang, the heavy metal gang, the parasite gang, so many, underlying infection gang, so many gangs, right? And they don't do things the right way. Gangs don't, right? And so neither do these guys. These guys have taken over. They're in control. They're the dominant bacteria in the gut, and they don't crave anything healthy. They crave sugars. So what science is finding is that there is a connection between the gut and the brain. It's called the gut-brain axis. Maybe you've heard of it. That means that there's a second brain. That's what they call it. They call it a second brain, which is amazing. It's not like an actual little brain, like it's not like a mini brain, but it is such a driving force of how our body makes decisions that science is calling this gut-brain axis, the connection between the gut and the brain. They're calling our gut the second brain. So what does that tell us? It tells us that it's not your child, your Matilda, your Cruz, or, your little boy or your little girl. It doesn't mean that their person is picky. I know. It's so true, because I see it again and again and again, every single time, that once we reverse and we take care of the ecosystem in the gut and we reverse the dynamic, these picky eating habits, and I'm not just talking about picky eating like, oh, I don't like broccoli. I'm talking about children with texture issues, children with gagging reflexes. All of this turns around once we change the ecosystem in the gut. That is amazing news. That is great news. That's super encouraging, because when we have a picky eater, we're not just frustrated that they're not eating what we make. We're also worried because we're realizing they're not getting a whole lot of nutrients unless it's coming from fruit, which is good, but still, with that, we're just feeding the pathogenic bacteria. That pathogenic bacteria is what is overgrown in the gut, has reached into the gut wall, made it permeable, which is allowing toxins to get into the body, into the bloodstream, which has led to their autoimmune disease in the first place. So can you see why it is so important that we get this ecosystem turned around? Not just so they'll eat, but yes, so they'll eat, but so that we can get a handle, number one, of what's going on, so that we don't end up with more autoimmune issues down the road. And we can actually start to reverse the one that your child currently has. Okay. So that's the key right there, is to understand, why are they all so picky? And that is the reason why. It's because the ecosystem in the gut is turned around and the bad guys are in control and they need sugar to survive. And they are sending signals to your child's brain saying, send that down, send that down. And they are literally repulsed by anything that would possibly, that they can't eat, because they'll starve. If you send something down that does not feed them, maybe for like one meal or, a little bit of it, they'll like let it pass. But if you start to really try and like give them something healthy, that bacteria in the gut that is driving the ship, driving the car and telling your child what is good and what is bad, it's sending signals saying, nope, not only that, I'm going to throw up if I eat that. And we're like lost, what do we do with that? So what do we do with that? Okay, so let's talk about that. So what we need to do is we need to turn this ecosystem around. We need to be feeding the body foods that not just repopulate. Probiotics have been, super popular right now. But let's, again, look at the gut, look at the permeability of the gut. If it is indeed permeable, which science is proving that, yes, that is true, it is. If it is indeed permeable, then wouldn't it be fair to say that even a probiotic getting out into the bloodstream would be an invader, right? So it's so much more than just sending down probiotic foods. Take a probiotic. We need to seal the root cause, the gut wall being permeable in the first place. So we have to deal with the overgrowth of the yeast, which has gotten into the gut wall and created holes. We need to get that down, but we also need to send building blocks down that repair the gut wall. There's lots of different things that people use for this, but that's what we need to do. We need to repair the gut wall. We need to rebuild the internal lining of the gut, so that way the bacteria in there can start absorbing the nutrients from the food that our children eat. And we need to change the parasitic load, the heavy yeast load, possible molds, possible heavy metals. We need to deal with all those things. This is not something, handling all these things is not something that's done like this. There's not a pill or a supplement or this or that does this. It's a lot of different things. The body is complicated, so we need to work with the body in a lot of different ways. However, reversing the picky eating comes rather quickly. Probably within a good 7 to 10 days, you will have completely reversed your child's picky eating by rebuilding the gut wall. That's important just so we can stop the problem from, continuing to go out into the bloodstream and out into the organs. But rebuilding the gut microbiome and getting the good guys in control. And when those good guys, the biodiverse, lots of different good guys, more than that's just in a little pellet. Once we get those dominant and we bring down the number of the yeast and bring down the number of the parasites, let's just stick with those for now. And those aren't the ones driving the ship anymore. Well, the good bacteria are going to be telling your child, I would really love a plate of broccoli. I would really love a leg of lamb. And I know it seems like, no, that's not going to happen. But think about it. what are we learning about what we are and what we are made of? We are made up of microorganisms and bacteria. And so once we manually change the bacteria that our child is made of, the next thing will follow. They will naturally, because not them, the gut-brain axis, the second brain will be sending signals to your child's brain to send down the foods that are healthful for them, because those are the foods that it needs to procreate and to repopulate and to grow. So I know it is that simple. You know, it does take some work, but it really is that simple. But more than anything, what I hope to accomplish with my videos is to take the fear, the stress, the worry, and the overwhelm, anxiety, all that confusion out of this diagnosis. There's so much of that out there. And to really empower you to know that there are things you can do. There are things you can do. There are things I can do to not just manage this, but to completely reverse this. No, it's not a magic wand. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not a special, something, an herb across the world that you need to buy. No, it takes work. It takes some work, but it's absolutely doable. And I've done it. So many of the people that I know, my clients that I work with every single day, are doing this every single day with their JIA children who couldn't walk, children who had autism and JIA who are now speaking. The list goes on and on of how changing the ecosystem has completely changed these families' lives. So not only does your child start eating healthy foods and is no longer super picky, but most importantly, and equally as important, you're also reversing your JIA. So that way you can enjoy your family now. You can get rid of all that stress and worry, anxiety, and you can guarantee you can send your JIA child off knowing that when he gets older, he's going to have a thriving, vibrant, happy life, not being sick, but being extremely healthy. And you can know that you did that. So I hope this information was helpful to you. I hope it was encouraging to you. And I'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye.